When the inner foundation is unstable, the outer behavior becomes restless. Words begin to multiply, not because they are needed, but because silence feels unsafe. The urge to explain does not arise from wisdom. It arises from discomfort with uncertainty, with misunderstanding, and most of all, with not being approved of. A grounded person speaks when speech is necessary. An insecure person speaks to protect themselves. This protection does not come from strength, but from fear, fear of being misjudged, fear of being rejected, fear of being seen incorrectly. When someone feels at peace with who they are, they do not rush to correct every perception. They understand that clarity is not something forced upon others, but something that reveals itself over time. Excessive explaining is an attempt to control how one is perceived. It is the mind saying, if I arrange the words correctly, I can manage the outcome. But life does not respond to explanations. People do not connect through logic alone. They connect through presence, through tone, through the steadiness of one's being. When explanations come too quickly, too often, they expose a deeper agitation, a need to be understood immediately because misunderstanding feels like a threat. Inner insecurity makes silence feel dangerous. In silence, there is no reassurance, no feedback, no confirmation. And so the insecure mind fills the space with words. It justifies, clarifies, over defends, yet with every added sentence, something is lost. The natural authority of stillness disappears. The energy becomes scattered. Instead of being felt, the person becomes noise. True clarity does not require repetition. It does not require persuasion. It does not require defending one's intentions. When clarity is rooted within, actions align naturally. And when actions are aligned, words become secondary. A person who knows themselves does not fear being misunderstood because their sense of self is not dependent on another's interpretation. Insecurity, however, is fragile. It seeks reinforcement from outside. It needs agreement to survive. That is why explaining becomes compulsive. It is not communication, it is self-soothing. Each explanation is an attempt to reduce anxiety, to restore balance, to feel safe again. But safety gained through explanation is temporary. It fades as soon as doubt returns, and doubt always returns when the foundation is external. Consider how often explanations come with urgency. The tone is tight, the timing is rushed, there is little patience. This urgency is revealing. It shows that the person feels something slipping away, respect, connection, control. Instead of grounding themselves, they reach outward. Instead of standing firm, they lean forward. And the more they lean, the less stable they become. Clarity is calm. It does not chase. It does not argue. It does not plead to be seen correctly. It trusts that what is real does not need constant reinforcement. A mountain does not explain why it stands. A tree does not justify its roots. Their presence is the explanation. When you explain yourself too much, you unconsciously teach others how to treat you. You signal that your boundaries are flexible, that your self-trust is negotiable. People feel this immediately, even if they cannot name it. They may listen to your words, but they respond to your state. And a state of insecurity invites doubt, not respect. This does not mean silence should be used as avoidance. Silence rooted in fear is no different from explanation rooted in fear. The difference lies in intention. Are you speaking to express, or are you speaking to protect? Are you clarifying because it serves truth, or because you are uncomfortable sitting with ambiguity? The disciplined path is learning to tolerate being misunderstood. This is not indifference. It is strength. It is the understanding that not every perception requires correction, and not every misunderstanding requires a response. When you stop reacting to every misalignment, you conserve energy. That energy returns inward and becomes steadiness. Steadiness is what people trust, not long explanations, not perfect wording, but consistency between what you say, what you do, and how you carry yourself. When these are aligned, clarity radiates without effort. The need to explain weakens as self-respect strengthens. When you respect yourself, you do not scramble to maintain an image. You allow others to take time forming their understanding. You remain centered even when agreement is absent. This centeredness cannot be explained into existence. It is built through inner work, through discipline, through facing discomfort without immediately escaping into words. When the inner world is ordered, the outer world requires fewer explanations. When the mind is calm, silence becomes spacious instead of threatening. And when silence becomes comfortable, words regain their power because they are no longer used to defend a fragile self, but to express a grounded one that does not need to be constantly proven to exist. It moves toward presence. Presence is felt before it is understood. It is the quiet gravity of someone who is fully inhabiting their body, their breath, their moment. Persuasion, on the other hand, belongs to the mind. It tries to lead, to convince, to pull outcomes in a certain direction. Desire does not respond to being pulled. It responds to being invited. Presence is still. It does not rush ahead of itself. When someone is present, they are not scanning for reactions, not adjusting their behavior to maintain interest, not shaping every word to produce a result. They are simply there. And this ness creates space. Space is what allows desire to emerge. Persuasion collapses space. It fills every gap with intention. Every pause becomes uncomfortable. Every silence must be explained. The more someone tries to persuade, the more they reveal their attachment to an outcome. And attachment creates pressure. Pressure is felt instantly, even when it is unspoken. Desire retreats from pressure because pressure removes choice. Desire needs freedom. It needs room to breathe, to wonder, to approach at its own pace. Presence offers this freedom because it is not trying to take anything. It is complete within itself. When a person is present, they are not leaning forward energetically. They are rooted. And what is rooted becomes magnetic. Many confuse effort with attraction. They believe that doing more, saying more, showing more will create desire. But effort directed outward often comes from inner lack. It carries the subtle message, I need something from you. Even when expressed politely, this need changes the atmosphere. The other person feels unconsciously responsible for your emotional state. Desire does not want responsibility. It wants resonance. Presence creates resonance. When you are fully in yourself, others feel permission to be fully in themselves. There is no performance, no expectation. This mutual relaxation allows desire to arise naturally. It is not manufactured. It is discovered. Persuasion operates on time. It wants results now. It fears delay. It interprets stillness as rejection. Presence, however, is patient. It understands that what is real unfolds in its own rhythm. There is no rush because there is no fear of loss. This patience is deeply attractive. It signals confidence without display. Notice how people who are deeply present move and speak. Their gestures are unhurried. Their words are measured. They listen without preparing a response. They are not trying to impress. And yet attention gravitates toward them. This is not because they are doing something special, but because they are not doing something unnecessary. Desire is sensitive. It notices subtle shifts in energy. When someone persuades, they often override these signals. They talk through hesitation. They explain through uncertainty. They fill silence that could have been fertile. In doing so, they prevent desire from forming. Presence would have allowed that moment of uncertainty to deepen into curiosity. Being present requires courage. It means letting go of control. It means allowing the other person to feel what they feel without interference. Persuasion interferes. It tries to manage perception, to steer emotion. Presence trusts. It trusts that what aligns will align without force. This trust is felt. It communicates self-sufficiency, not detachment, but wholeness. When someone is whole, they are not bargaining for desire. They are not proving their worth. They are simply offering their presence and allowing desire to meet them there if it wishes. The paradox is that when you stop trying to create desire, you become more desirable. This is because your energy returns to yourself. You are no longer leaking attention outward. You become centered. Centeredness is calm, and calm draws people in. It feels safe. It feels real. Persuasion often comes from fear of being overlooked. Presence comes from comfort with being seen or not seen. This comfort removes tension from interaction. Without tension, there is play. Without play, desire cannot exist. Desire is not logical. It does not respond to reasons. It responds to atmosphere. Presence creates atmosphere. Persuasion tries to explain why the atmosphere should change. One is lived, the other is argued. When you are present, you are listening not just to words, but to timing, tone, and silence. You respond instead of react. This responsiveness keeps energy alive. Persuasion is often reactive. It pushes back against perceived distance. Presence allows distance to exist without panic, knowing that closeness cannot be forced. To cultivate presence is to slow down internally, to feel your breath, to inhabit your body fully. When the body is inhabited, the mind relaxes. And when the mind relaxes, you stop trying to convince. You begin to simply be. And in that being, desire recognizes something familiar, Something ungraspable, something that cannot be argued into existence, only felt, only approached, only allowed to unfold in its own time. Justification pulls your energy upward into the mind, away from the body, away from the present moment. It turns your attention outward, toward how you are being evaluated, rather than inward, toward how you are actually standing. What begins as an attempt to be understood slowly becomes a habit of self-abandonment. Justifying yourself assumes there is something wrong with your position that needs fixing. Even when spoken calmly, the underlying message is subtle but powerful. I am not secure enough to let my actions stand on their own. Each justification is a small step away from self-trust. Instead of resting in your choices, you explain them. Instead of inhabiting your decision, you defend it. Groundedness is rooted in acceptance. Not acceptance from others, but acceptance of oneself. When you are grounded, you do not rush to correct every doubt or challenge. You remain steady in the face of disagreement. You understand that not everyone needs to agree for your path to remain valid. Justification, however, arises when disagreement feels like a threat rather than a difference. The body reveals this immediately. When you justify yourself, the breath becomes shallow, the shoulders tense, the voice speeds up or tightens. There is a subtle forward lean, an unconscious reaching for approval. Groundedness, by contrast, is felt as weight in the body, slow breath, relaxed posture. It is the sensation of being supported from within rather than propped up by external validation. Each time you justify, you shift the source of your stability outward. You place it in the hands of the listener. If they accept your explanation, you feel relief. If they do not, you feel shaken. This dependency erodes inner balance. Over time, you forget how to stand without feedback. You become reactive, adjusting yourself to avoid disapproval instead of acting from clarity. Justification also fragments your energy. You split yourself into two roles, the one who acts and the one who explains the action. This split creates distance between intention and expression. Instead of moving forward, you look backward, narrating and defending what has already occurred. Groundedness requires forward momentum. Justification keeps you circling in place. Often, people justify themselves in anticipation of criticism. They speak before they are questioned. They defend before they are attacked. This anticipation reveals a lack of trust in their own resilience. It assumes that disagreement will destabilize them unless preemptively managed. But preemptive defense is still defense, and defense keeps the nervous system alert, never at rest. A grounded person understands that silence can carry strength. They know when explanation adds value and when it only adds noise. They are not compelled to fill gaps with reasoning. They allow their actions to breathe. This patience signals confidence. It says, I am comfortable standing here, even if you do not immediately understand. Justification weakens boundaries. When you explain too much, you invite others to negotiate your decisions. You open the door for debate where none was necessary. Over time, this trains people to question you because you have taught them that your choices are flexible under pressure. Groundedness, on the other hand, sets clear limits without hostility. It does not argue for its right to exist. There is also a subtle arrogance hidden within justification. It assumes that if you just explain well enough, others will agree. This places the mind above experience. Groundedness is humbler. It recognizes that people bring their own filters, histories, and projections. Understanding cannot be forced. It unfolds naturally or not at all. When you stop justifying, discomfort arises. The mind panics. It wants to regain control through explanation. But if you stay with this discomfort, something shifts. The body settles. The breath deepens. You discover that you do not collapse without agreement. You remain intact without validation. This discovery builds real confidence. Groundedness is not stubbornness. It is openness without collapse. You can listen, receive feedback, and still remain centered. Justification, however, often masquerades as openness while actually being fear in motion. It listens only to respond, only to correct, only to protect. As self-trust grows, the urge to justify weakens. You no longer feel responsible for managing every perception. You allow others to sit with their reactions. You stop carrying the weight of their understanding. This release returns energy to your center. When energy returns to the center, actions become cleaner. Words become fewer. Presence becomes heavier. You stand on your decisions instead of hovering above them, explaining why they deserve to exist. It grows quieter when you settle deeper into yourself. Stillness is often misunderstood as passivity, but it is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of unnecessary movement. Performance, by contrast, is movement driven by fear, fear of being overlooked, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough as you are. When someone performs, their attention is split. Part of them is acting, another part is watching the reaction, and another is adjusting in real time. This fragmentation pulls them out of the moment. Even if the performance is impressive, it feels hollow. The other person senses the effort behind it, and effort aimed at being desired creates distance rather than closeness. Stillness brings the attention back home. When you are still, you are not trying to be seen a certain way. You are simply present. Your body settles, your breath slows, your nervous system relaxes. This relaxation creates safety, and safety is the soil where attraction takes root. Performance seeks approval. Stillness allows connection. Approval is conditional. It rises and falls based on response. Connection is felt. It does not need constant feedback. When you perform, you are implicitly asking, is this enough? When you are still, you are stating without words, I am here. This presence speaks more clearly than any display. Attraction is not impressed by effort alone. It is drawn to authenticity. Performance often hides insecurity behind charm or competence. Stillness reveals comfort with oneself. This comfort is magnetic because it signals emotional stability. People are drawn to what feels stable, especially in a world full of noise and urgency. In performance, timing is rushed. There is little patience for silence. Every pause feels like a failure. Stillness welcomes pauses. It understands that silence can deepen intimacy. In silence, there is space to feel, to sense, to become curious. Performance fills silence with noise, preventing attraction from forming naturally. Stillness also communicates boundaries. A person who is still does not overextend. They do not chase reactions. They do not bend themselves to maintain interest. This self-containment creates intrigue. Not mystery through withholding, but depth through groundedness. Attraction leans toward what is self-contained because it feels complete. Performance is exhausting. It requires constant output. Over time, it drains energy and creates resentment. Stillness is sustainable. It conserves energy. When you are still, you do not need to manage impressions. You allow others to meet you as you are. This authenticity invites real interest, not temporary fascination. Many believe attraction comes from being entertaining, impressive, or useful. But these qualities fade when effort stops. Stillness, however, does not fade. It remains consistent. Consistency builds trust, and trust allows attraction to deepen beyond surface appeal. When someone is still, they listen fully. They are not planning their next move. They are not performing intelligence, humor, or confidence. They are receptive. This receptivity makes the other person feel seen. Feeling seen is far more attractive than being impressed. Performance places the focus on self. Stillness places the focus on the shared moment. Attraction lives in the shared moment, not in self-presentation. When both people relax into the moment, there is no need to prove anything. Desire arises quietly without force. Stillness also requires courage. It means resisting the urge to fill space. It means trusting that you are enough without adding layers. This trust is felt. It tells the other person that you are not dependent on their response for your sense of worth. Over time, those who rely on performance find themselves chasing attention. Those who cultivate stillness find that attention comes to them. Not because they demand it, but because they are comfortable without it. Attraction grows when there is room to breathe, room to approach, room to retreat. Performance crowds this space. Stillness protects it. In that protected space, interest deepens, curiosity awakens, and connection forms without strain, without strategy, without effort, guided by the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to perform to be chosen. It does not argue its case or seek recognition. It is not constructed through words or maintained through explanation. It is felt quietly and immediately in the way a person stands, moves, listens, and responds. Long before anyone understands your reasons, they sense whether you trust yourself. When self-trust is present, there is no urgency to convince. The body is relaxed. The breath is steady. Decisions are made without excessive consultation or second-guessing. This ease cannot be performed convincingly for long. It arises from repeated moments of choosing oneself, especially when doing so feels uncomfortable. Explanation belongs to doubt. The moment you feel the need to explain yourself repeatedly, you have already stepped away from self-trust. You are asking for permission after the fact. You are trying to stabilize an inner uncertainty by organizing it into words. But words do not resolve doubt. They only distract from it. Self-trust lives in action. It is built through alignment between what you feel, what you choose, and what you follow through on. When these three are consistent, there is nothing to explain. Even if others disagree, your inner state remains steady. This steadiness is sensed by others not through logic, but through presence. People often confuse confidence with assertiveness. Assertiveness can be rehearsed. Self-trust cannot. It reveals itself in restraint as much as in action. A self-trusting person knows when to speak and when to remain silent. They do not overcorrect misunderstandings. They do not rush to defend their intentions. They allow others to have their interpretations without internal collapse. When you trust yourself, you are no longer negotiating your worth. You are no longer collecting evidence to justify your choices. You act, and you let the consequences teach you. This willingness to learn rather than defend strengthens inner authority. Each time you survive a mistake without betraying yourself, self-trust deepens. Explanation is often an attempt to avoid discomfort. Discomfort arises when you act from your truth and encounter resistance. Instead of sitting with that resistance, the mind tries to smooth it over with reasoning. But growth requires friction. Self-trust grows by staying present in that friction without immediately trying to resolve it externally. Self-trust is also felt in pacing. There is no rush to decide and no panic when things are unclear. You trust your ability to respond when the time comes. This patience is not indecision. It is confidence in your internal compass. Others feel this and relax around you because your calm suggests reliability. Trying to explain self-trust weakens it. The more you talk about how confident you are, the less convincing it becomes. True self-trust does not need to be named. It is embedded in how you hold boundaries, how you recover from setbacks, and how you remain consistent under pressure. A self-trusting person does not outsource validation. They receive feedback, but they do not depend on it to know who they are. This independence creates a grounded presence. People may not always agree with them, but they respect them. Respect arises from coherence, not explanation. There is also humility in self-trust. You do not assume you are always right. You assume you are capable of adjusting without losing yourself. This flexibility makes you more stable, not less. You do not cling to being correct. You cling to being honest with yourself. As self-trust strengthens, the need to be understood weakens. You stop explaining your motives. You stop preemptively defending your choices. You allow your path to unfold without commentary. This silence is not withdrawal. It is confidence resting in itself. Over time, others may ask fewer questions, not because they understand you fully, but because they feel your certainty. They sense that your decisions are anchored somewhere solid. And even when they cannot follow your reasoning, they can feel your alignment. Self-trust is a quiet agreement between you and yourself, renewed through action, strengthened through discomfort, and recognized through presence long before it is ever spoken. Your attention returns to you. Your movements slow. Your words become more deliberate. You are no longer scanning faces for confirmation or adjusting your behavior to maintain acceptance. This inner shift is felt by others immediately, even if they cannot explain why. Approval seeking places your center outside of yourself. It makes your emotional state dependent on response. A smile lifts you, silence unsettles you, distance feels like rejection. This constant monitoring creates tension, and tension is the opposite of desire. Desire requires ease, openness, and freedom. When you are seeking approval, you remove that freedom, because the other person becomes responsible for your sense of worth. The moment you stop seeking approval, you reclaim that responsibility. You no longer need someone else to reassure you that you are enough. This self-sufficiency creates a calm confidence, not arrogance, not detachment, but grounded self-respect. People are drawn to this because it feels stable. It feels safe. It feels real. Desire does not want to be needed. It wants to be chosen. There is a difference. Need creates obligation. Choice creates attraction. When you seek approval, you are unconsciously asking to be chosen in order to feel whole. When you stop, you allow choice to exist on both sides. This mutual freedom is what allows desire to approach naturally. Approval seeking also narrows your expression. You become cautious. You avoid saying or doing things that might disrupt connection. Over time, this self-censorship dulls your presence. You are there, but not fully. Desire senses this withholding. It does not respond to someone who is constantly editing themselves to be acceptable. When you stop seeking approval, your expression becomes cleaner. You speak honestly, without over-explaining. You act without justifying. You allow disagreement without panic. This authenticity creates polarity. Not everyone will resonate with you, but those who do will feel a stronger pull. Desire is drawn to clarity. Approval-seeking blurs clarity because it prioritizes harmony over truth. It tries to smooth edges instead of standing firmly. But attraction grows at edges. It grows where there is distinction, where two people can meet without dissolving into each other. There is also a shift in energy. When you seek approval, your energy flows outward. You are giving before being asked. You are leaning forward, hoping to be met. When you stop, your energy settles back into your body. You become upright, centered. This containment creates magnetism. What is contained draws interest. What is scattered is overlooked. People feel safer approaching someone who is not chasing them emotionally. There is no pressure to respond a certain way. No fear of disappointing. This absence of pressure allows curiosity to form. Curiosity is the doorway to desire. Stopping approval seeking does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means becoming honest about your own value. You still care, you still connect, but you do not collapse in the absence of validation. This balance is rare, and rarity attracts attention. When you no longer seek approval, you also stop over-giving. You allow reciprocity to develop naturally. You notice effort instead of compensating for its absence. This shifts the dynamic. Desire responds to balance. When both people contribute freely, attraction deepens. There is a quiet dignity in someone who does not ask to be liked. This dignity is not performed. It is lived. It shows in how they wait, how they respond, how they hold space without filling it. Others sense this and lean in, wanting to understand it, wanting to feel it. Desire moves toward what feels grounded and whole. When you stop seeking approval, you embody that wholeness. You are no longer reaching outward for confirmation. You are standing where you are, open but not needy, present but not grasping. And in that stillness, in that self-respect, in that refusal to abandon yourself for acceptance, desire recognizes something it trusts and begins to move closer on its own terms,